Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you find yourself in this weird, wild, wacky world of ours, and welcome to the exciting installment of Darkness in Dublin. The scene takes place in the home apartment general domicile of Mr. Theodus Crane. Theodus, what are you doing on this rather pleasant evening? It's just after Christmas. Does Theodus celebrate Christmas? Does he have family?
Yes, they're part of his flaws. So he doesn't really spend Christmas with them.
I see.
Probably sent them an email saying, hey, and probably emailed them some books to read as a Christmas gift. He probably went to, God damn it. He probably went to Waterstones in Dublin and bought them some books that he knows, a book each that he knows they probably will enjoy because everyone has reading preferences.
I have to ask, did you just Google the name of a bookstore in Dublin?
No, this is actually one that's in my city. So,
okay,
in my home. Yes, glorious Southern England, heart of the I can't remember. Heart of this totally not dead, undead empire. Throne of the Lich King. What Southampton is? It's just a husk.
Wow.
So much national pride right here. But yes, no, he probably just went down to Waterstones on probably like the 21st. Got them some Christmas presents and sent them off. Made up some bullshit excuses. To be fair, a very probably a legitimate excuse of work at the university. Stating that he couldn't make it home.
I will point out the Order of Hermes will have hosted you on Christmas Day. Turkey was involved.
Well, Theodus does like Turkey. You know, he is. Despite his frail frame, he is a bit of a carnivore. But yes, other than that, he's largely just been kind of not spending Christmas with a lot of people because D'Onofrio is probably like, what the fuck, no, stop clinging to me, like a koala, like a distressed koala. And everybody else was probably busy dealing with a Christmas night massacre or some other nonsense, which the supernatural world, which Theodus has much less interest in dealing with right now, because he'd rather not get involved in Christmas night massacres. That seems very bloody and very dangerous.
I'm not going to lie, I'm just picturing the fact that D'Onofrio just has this section on her coat that has been purposefully elongated, so Theodus clings to, which is like, God damn it.
It's like he's compensated for his lack of lower body strength with his hands, which are just closer to claws, which just dig in and just like cannot be removed from any surface so long as they are gripped.
Oh, interesting question before I continue with the scene proper. Does Theodus read the paper?
He does. He's actually kind of a fan of old print media, even if it does involve indulging the gutter press, which he legitimately hates beyond all reason.
I was going to say, you will have seen the seal that was found in the church in Dublin at said massacre. I was merely curious if you actually look at it through the glasses that you now possess in order to translate it.
He will, yes.
Okay. Do you want to make me a willpower roll, difficulty 9?
Sure thing. That sounds great.
Yay! For the love of God, don't botch.
I will. Because, I mean, you've said it now, so, I mean, too late. Too late! Let's see. What's my willpower? Willpower's pretty good, I think. If I can find it, where's it gone? It turns out I have 0. Whoops. That's a very good question. Where's on my sheet? Oh, here it is. Oh, yeah, I do have 8 willpower because I'm fairly tough. Tough roll. Tough not to crack. Difficulty 9. Let's go. I botch.
Oh. Okay. How's it going? Yeah.
Not great. This fetus die.
No.
6, 7, 4, 4, 7, 3, 6, 1. Solution
Okay.
last dice. I'd have benefited from having 7 willpower.
So you start to read it, and basically you have to pull it up on your computer screen because they have much high def images of it on the various different news sites. You start to kind of look it over with oh, actually no, this is very important. Does he read it in head or does he start saying it out loud?
Oh, he's reading it silently.
Okay.
He has no one to read to, so
Okay, that might have just saved your life. As you start to read, it becomes vaguely apparent. There are a number of concentric circles in the text. And in the concentric circles, there are a number of words that are written in a very, very archaic script. You would probably recognize the script as being some kind of very old Aramaic, but you don't personally speak it. And it's all about it seems to have a recurring theme about doors opening and doors closing. So it is something you read words like by the folly of Yahweh, let all things be unsealed, doors cast open near the morning light, now forever forgotten, the bindings that once held. You basically start to read things like this, things that don't quite make sense in your head. And you start to feel dizzy, like you're spiraling, like you've spun around in a circle very, very quickly, and it's that sudden lurch of dizziness as your equilibrium is almost completely disturbed. Your eyes you start to lose focus. Your eyes don't go blind exactly, but everything goes fuzzy, if you understand me. At which point, when you eventually blink them back and blink them into existence, does Theodos have any mirrors in his room, or is there a window pane or anything that is made of solid glass?
yeah, he probably has one in the living room. Like you kind of see yourself as you kind of walk in past the porch door. Like it's to the left of the person. It's kind of just for decoration.
Yeah,
It's just a clear mirror. It's not like some sort of ornate royal regal thing.
You could almost swear that out of the corner of your eye, you can see a figure stood in your mirror.
Oh well, he kind of just does a double take at the mirror, looking awfully concerned at the thought of it. At the thought of something being in his mirror.
You then could swear you feel something skitter, and I mean skitter, as in multiple legs across the back of your neck.
Pardon?
You could almost swear you feel something skitter across the back of your neck.
Oh, he kind of slaps the back of his neck as if he's kind of stamping out a mosquito. Kind of based on nerves. Like it's kind of a reflex reaction.
Okay, when you bring your hand back around to face you, you see the fact it's covered in dripping black ichor.
Um, yeah, this there's kind of a this sort of brief gasp. He just goes and then this causes him to leap to his feet, which hurts a lot. So he just goes ah.
Strangely enough, as you leap to your feet, it doesn't hurt.
Oh, okay.
But as you look down, you see the fact that your legs aren't physically there. From your waist down is a swirling nimbus that looks as if it is rolling clouds that every so often you see a face torn out of, as well as limbs flailing.
Okay. There is the again a brief squeal from Theodos as he then tries to as just a moments before he descends into panic, just stops and just thinks to himself, okay, how can I fix this? And will attempt to bring up probably Prime Sight. See if we can figure out what the hell is going on. That's okay. So yeah, he brings up his supernatural senses to try and understand the hell is this Nimbus doing here, and why has it replaced my legs? Because he really wasn't expecting that, and that's thrown him off. That wasn't something he really expected or wanted. Can't really go out now. That's you know.
Turning on your Prime.
Oh, are you okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you not hear me?
Yep.
Okay, you feel yourself sinking as you turn on your Prime Sight, like you're being drawn down. You see tiny vestigial limbs like those of half-forgotten babes dragging at you as they start to pull you into this black nimbus. From behind you, you hear a voice, an oddly sweet-sounding voice that you can't tell if it's male or female, say, "Ah, Mr. Crane, I presume."
Again, there's the double take as he just goes, "Who are you, and what have you done with my legs?"
That one's going in the quote thread.
I know they were shoddy, but I wanted replacements, not a cloud.
As you turn around, you see this figure stood there, dressed in a white robe, not the black that is shown, and it is spattered in crimson, but you're not sure if the crimson is blood or if it is designed into the pattern, basically. And it's smiling at you, and you can see in its mouth very pronounced teeth. Very pronounced fangs, I should say.
Ooh.
What is always. What you perceive, not always the case. I was merely pondering, Master Crane, what it is you thought of my work.
What? Oh, he looks back at the newspaper. um, and this was, where was this written again?
It was written in the Irish Times. It took place in a church. Have you read the actual article that I wrote?
I'm trying to find which one.
It's the one I wrote a few days ago.
Okay, it's not the one you wrote 4 hours ago. Oh god, this is going to be painful. I'm going to have to find it. Let me see if I can...
right now. It's the one that has the weird bloody occult symbol as its picture.
Ah, found it, yep.
I tell you what, you might want to read both of those, and I'll be back in just a few moments. I just need to go get a drink.
No problem. Hmm.
And I'm back. I'm now equipped with a drink. Have you read the thing?
Yes.
Okay. But it's asking you what you think of his work or its work. As you look at it, it's really hard to tell its gender. Like it could be either or, and it's very difficult to tell. I was merely hoping for another's critique.
Why would you commit such an act of violence?
Violence? Oh, come now, darling boy. Darling boy. It reaches out and it strokes your face with long black fingernails. You try to shy backwards, but you can't seem to move anything below your waist.
Yeah, there's clouds there now.
Have we not always used violence as a tool? You fought 2 wars against us, and yet you still speak aghast of violence. Shh.
I don't even know who you are. I don't recall fighting a war against you.
I see. Oh, my dear darling boy. You're so new. So. He kisses the side of your head just above the temple, or it kisses the side of your head just above the temple. So fresh faced. Very well. I shall leave you in the suspense, for soon you'll come to know. Though anything is possible.
Oh, Are you... Oh, see, what's the name of them? I just want to get the pronunciation correct. Didene?
Dene or Diadne.
Are you that Dene?
It shakes its head and it says, "No, but I remember the Diadne. That was a sweet instance. How it was they screamed." "No, no. Look for the other fallen, perhaps. You might come to a realization." "But now, darling boy, I shall leave you. As for why you are or why things are," he'll say, pointing to your legs, "conceptions, reality. It snaps its fingers and the cloud dissipates, leaving your legs perfectly fine, as if nothing had happened to them. Obviously, you are still crippled. You still now the pain returns when you perceive it, but until then, it had been nothing to you."
Oh yeah, he immediately reaches out to get himself in his chair again, just because he can stand with support. He can move with support, but yeah, if he's just standing all on his own or trying to do any remotely strenuous activity with his legs, it gets pretty bad pretty quickly. So hooray for fucked up nervous systems. He immediately retreats to his chair. Kind of looks back at the other figure that just brought his legs back, and we'll kind of ask it before it goes, what was the purpose behind all this?
If you have to ask that, then you don't see the path.
Well, I'm more interested in why you're here.
I merely wanted a critique of my work, but I can see you don't understand it. A shame.
Have you visited anyone else?
Not yet, but I will. Since I know your name, it would be rude for me not to give you mine. Would you agree?
No, I do appreciate good manners.
My name is Aisha. A pleasure to make your acquaintance. As for your legs and what it is you saw, you read some of my spell, even unknowingly, even to yourself in the quiet place of your mind, you incanted its words. So it is, you almost opened the door.
Venus kind of, how to say, looks a bit irritated at something. He will just say, I think that begs some questions in its own right.
Very well. Since I'm a guest in your home, as lovely as it is, I will give you one truthful answer. One single answer. Choose your question carefully.
He He has two questions he mulls over, one of which involves why they're doing this. The other one is what particular door they're trying to open.
Okay, I'm gonna give some advice here. You get the distinct impression that this chap is very much a fairy deal kind of person, so you will want to make your question very specific.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Theodos knows that much. He may not know the Fae, but
I'm describing it as a Fae-like deal. You could also say a Faustian deal.
yeah.
Mind you, if I ever say Faustian deal again, half my mage players will show up in this room and attempt to beat me to death.
Yep. Well, fortunately, Theodos has met lawyers, so he knows to some varying degree how this works. And now arguably worse. Because lawyer memes. He he stops Sphinx. Is there any... Would I be able to make a roll to try and determine... interpret what was written, in the sense that to determine either the source of... Not the source, but the door that is trying to be opened. In the sense that...
I have a horrible question that you will never ever want to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you possess at least one dot of correspondence?
I have... 1 second. Yes, I do.
Would Theodos like to use correspondence in order to connect to see the door?
Yeah, sure, why not? This can only end well.
Okay, roll me that sweet, Arete.
What's the difficulty?
It's an effect you don't have, but it's difficulty 4. You can use a foci to lower it to 3 if you would like.
Sure, he does have foci on him. Let me just double check his foci real quick. He probably doesn't want the figure to know he's explicitly doing it, so he won't use any for the purposes of this role, because he needs to do it subtly, and pretty much all of his foci are fairly bulky, like fairly large objects, like a book, for example, or it involves him speaking. So
okay, in that case, I might recommend spending willpower on the rule.
Sure, why not? This can only end well. Spend the willpower. I get 3 successes. I look into the void and see all sorts of Cthulhian horrors. Which, I mean, is what Theodos is all about, so this is going to go great.
I'm trying to think how to phrase this. Okay. You make the connection, the powers of correspondence sympathetically connecting you. After all, if this was some semblance of a key, then surely that must mean that there is some semblance of a lock you must look upon. You look into, you close your eyes. The magic interacts with the universe. You force your will upon it. You harness it to yourself. At which point, you see a blanket field of thousands of stars, each one spread out before you, as if it was a great map of all things. You see this grandiose display, this interplay of light and shadow. And then, to the edge, to the very side, there is nothingness. The opaque darkness that is darker than black. You see no stars as its sigils, no guardians that stand above it, but where there is light, it recoils. Where there is hope, it dies. Where there is nothingness, however, it thrives. You look into the utterness of the shadow, and the shadow looks back into you. Please make me a willpower roll at difficulty 10.
Oh, no, don't do that. I botch. I almost succeed, but 2 1s and no 10s.
Hooray! All right.
But
Theodos.
knowledge is what my character's made for, so why not?
Theodos, you will get. Hang on. You will gain the permanent derangement, fear of the dark.
Oh, okay.
However, you will also gain 2 dots in lore outsider.
Okay.
For you have looked into oblivion, and oblivion has looked back into you.
Okay. And so I'll just gain Phobia Darkness.
Phobia darkness, yeah.
Okay, I'll just take that real quick.
I also can't remember. Does phobia have a severity?
Depends on the game. Let me double check. Because they it's literally different, I think, in almost every game like. I'll check for you. But major special, so probably.
I was going to say, if it does, you get the most extreme version of it.
The 3.1, yes. 2 to 3 points.
Cool, you'll get the 3-point version.
3 point is... What the heck? So you find a tiny slow, only thing confronted with an equal parallel for flee. This law has a 3-point variation when applied to vampires and werekin. Mages, however, are not subject to uncanny frenzies the way such creatures are, so the floor is worth only 2 points to a mage or other non-frenzying character. What the
Okay, you'll gain the 2-point version.
Yeah, so it's the same as, but the vampires don't have a 3-point version. What's this book? Okay, Secret, stop it. Yeah, so
the Book of Secrets need to go home because it's drunk.
It is drunk. It's applying this floor to vampires and werewolves as well. Even though the book for them, I think, only has 2-point versions. So there you go. So yeah, yeah, it's cool.
But yes, you have seen something that no man should ever see, and it unmakes you a little bit.
Oof.
The last thing you remember before passing out with a scream on your lips is this figure kneeling over you, stroking your face and gently saying, "Now you see." Now you understand. However, the next thing you will see is you are sitting in a very plush, very nice office. It kind of looks like a circa 1920s style kind of boudoir, kind of, it has the very kind of almost tacky leather upholstery on the walls that you see in very old-timey establishments. And you're seated in a very comfortable chair in front of a mahogany desk, and there's another very high-backed chair behind the desk, but it's turned around, not facing you, so that there's somebody sitting in it, but they're not looking at you. And you'll hear a woman's voice say, "You always had to look, don't you?"
Upon from him kind of recovering from his completely broken down state, which apparently, according to a particular spirit, wasn't even the first time, he kind of quickly recomposed himself. This is and every time,
the chair doesn't so much turn as it does dematerialize and then rematerialize facing you, and there is this woman who is seated in the chair. I found a real life version of the picture of your avatar.
Yay. Knowledge cannot be gained if one is not willing to seek it, even for the most unconventional, he says, making the understatement of the past 500 years.
So what you're saying is that in the quest for knowledge, the self should be sacrificed, or can be sacrificed, as what? A simple commodity for the knowledge?
If the self is lost, then knowledge cannot be gained or applied, surely.
Indeed. So why is it that you would so desperately and recklessly throw yourself at situations wherein it may destroy you, but you might be wise in the moment of your destruction?
Oh, God, I accidentally activated Google Hangouts somehow. He simply retorts, because in my current state, it's not like I'm going to get a second opportunity anytime soon, and then the understanding I can gain from whoever committed those murders can be a powerful tool.
So what you're saying is that rather than justice, or rather than knowledge, you were seeking justice.
I don't see how these are mutually exclusive concepts.
I would argue that the unjust are quite often knowledgeable. Simply because they're unjust does not preclude them from understanding. As a matter of fact, one could even argue that the unjust inherently may become knowledgeable because they must keep their position wherein they may be unjust.
I suppose that depends on the subject in question. Many unjust figures have been renowned for their ignorance. Others are so knowledgeable for the very reasons that you speak of, because they need to maintain their position of control.
I suppose you're correct. She looks at you with the kind of expression that says, "Dear God, why do we keep having this conversation?"
Because it's him.
Right.
I will admit this experience has tempered me somewhat.
Oh, really? Into what? A butter knife?
More like a blunted messy axe.
Hmm.
Still good for bludgeoning, though.
Yes. Well, that is rather how I would describe our relationship. She stands up and she holds out her hand, and she will say, right, okay. I guess considering the day that's in it, or rather the day that was yesterday, I get to play the Ghost of Christmas Past with you.
That has several connotations.
Just take my hand and find out then, as I don't have all night.
Very well, then. He'll take her hand. Still kind of trying to recover from the rather shaking experience he just had.
Mm-hmm. As you take her hand, the office melts away until you are standing on what appears to be a grassy knoll or bluff overlooking a road that is far below you. The road itself is made of packed earth that's been packed up in order to form a solid, hard topped surface that's roughly around a meter from ground level proper. And you see a single rider is racing along the road. The horse underneath him is black and dappled with sweat as it races with all its might.
Hmm.
You see the man is dressed as he comes nearer in very ornate armor with a silken under kimono. You see two swords hanging at his hip, and you see a messenger case slung over his back.
He kind of tilts his head at the man and the messenger. Are they approaching him, or are they just kind of racing by?
They're racing by. She will say very nonchalantly, "His name is Shinjo Torahara, if it helps. Even now, it would seem as though Oda Nobunaga marches on his liege lord's castle. That information is for Hayatsu Niratora, the only man with an army large enough to confront Nobunaga," he'll say as she gestures towards the message pack on his back. "That information is so vital that he has ridden 2 horses to death in the last 2 days in order to reach Nirotara's castle." You will then see from the bushes, from your perspective, clearly they can't see you because you are only roughly about 20 feet from them, a number of men who are dressed in simple black kimonos with black leather armor on, who have very large Asian style Yumi bows strung.
Mm-hmm.
And she will say, "And those are the men who intend to end his life." Do you see information, knowledge being a dangerous thing?
Yes.
So now the question is, as the bystander, someone who is not affected by this conflict whatsoever, do we intervene so that knowledge, the light, can shine through, or do we interact and make it so that the end will not come and knowledge can and knowledge sorry, and make it so that the gift of knowledge can win true in the end?
What was the last part of the statement? Sorry.
She's basically saying, do we interfere, in which case the rider will live, or do we not, in which case the rider will die? In one case, knowledge is victorious in the sense that the information will be given to whom it is intended, or in the other, it is snuffed out in the sense that it will be destroyed by those individuals who are intending to kill the man. On that side note, I'm just going to get a drink. I'll be back momentarily.
Okay.
And I'm back.
Okay. Um,
I'm waiting for Theodos's decision.
he looks a little bit puzzled, not necessarily confused, but he navigates a little bit, and he says, "Isn't this encounter about the supremacy of knowledge rather than whether it lives or dies? After all, the knowledge will still exist regardless of who is victorious in this encounter."
She smiles slightly. For the record, you will notice that in order to give you time to contemplate whatever else have you, things have definitely slowed down. Like things are happening in a very slow motion.
Hmm.
She'll turn around and she'll say, "An interesting concept and conundrum. What would you do though?" And she turns and look at you. She looks at you, and you can't see any lie in her face when she says this. And what would you do if I told you that was you?
Who is she saying that Theodis is?
She points to the writer.
If that were me, well, I'm sure it goes without saying I'd defend myself.
Does that mean that now, knowing it is you, you will defend yourself? Or rather, I should be more correct. Maybe it was you.
The way I perceive it, it looks as if I have little choice, unless I surrender myself to ignorance.
Is ignorance not bliss?
True, but that is the... I hesitate to say trick because it makes it sound so... Well, it makes you sound so deceitful, which isn't really fair. But it would be bliss to the ignorant, if only because they perceive it to be so, and they do not have the knowledge to understand otherwise.
I understand this premise.
But because their perceptions have been diminished, either willfully or by an outside source, that wouldn't necessarily make it true. It would just be... Oh, it'd be false. It would be believing in something while willfully ignoring the fact that it is wrong.
I often find that conducive to many things, ignorance is indeed bliss. But then again, that entirely depends upon your perspective, I should think.
I've come to dislike that word in recent years.
Perspective?
Hmm.
Why? Is there really one truth? The unsubjective truth?
Well, that's what frustrates me. People have come to believe that there are multiple legitimate truths, and in many cases this is in fact true. But it has led to many people to blanket every scenario, every situation, every idea with this concept where everything is equally valid, when that is not necessarily the case, because it is easy and it is harmless. To paint a more hopeful picture than that might exist, rather than understanding that the truth might be more grim, and as such they'll need to do something to make it less grim.
I understand. So, in that case, Theodis Crane, as you are now, as you stand here, She motions with her head to the fact that where these men are standing behind them, the rocks and soil is quite loose, and she says, "It would be a simple matter to have the insider side of this mesa come down upon their heads. You could save the rider. Let him ride on to deliver his message so that knowledge will prevail, or you can let the natural course of events take their course and hope that all will be well, that knowledge will prevail. So, my question is, must you have a direct or indirect hand in this?" Can knowledge flourish if we allow it to attempt to do so via itself and happenstance, or must humanity always influence the course of events so that it will end up doing as we wish it to do?
I would argue that is a false dichotomy. It is
So,
not. We do not always need to have our hand in events, but sometimes we should or must. It is. We are not locked into one possibility or the other, particularly given the breadth of time and history. Humanity has done both, and will probably continue to do so for the foreseeable future.
anything is an inherent possibility, you are correct. However, ultimately, does humanity not choose to shepherd the possible, to make it so that the possible becomes the probable? Is that not the curse of humanity, or one thereof?
That is true. Humanity wishes to test the limits of what it can and can't do. I'm not sure I'd call it a curse, but it certainly is an inherent part of their history, and as such mine.
So, do we intercede in this matter or do we not? Time ticks away, Theodis Crane.
This is true. Suppose if nothing else. Oh, you won't cough. And I suppose the most I can do is remain true to myself in the process.
She stops and turns and smiles and says, "And that, Theodis Crane, is the only lesson you need ever learn." At which point the entire scene fades. You don't actually have to do anything. You came to a realization. The fact is that the action taken is not necessarily the action. The action taken does not have to be correct for a grandiose cosmic reason. Oftentimes, one must take an action to be true to themselves.
Theodis, slightly, as the scene fades, Theodis looks slightly surprised. He's in that very typical sort of trying to appear in more control than they actually are fashion. Although, like a lot of things today on this fine Christmas, he has been caught off guard, and it shows pretty heavily that he wasn't quite expecting that. As he As he doesn't even really get a chance to converse with his avatar further. And doesn't even really get a chance to respond. He just kind of looks a bit surprised as he's back in his room, back in his house.
She will turn to you before she flickers out of sight, and she will say, "No matter what name you have or face you wear, you will always be the same." Before, yes, you will find yourselves back in your room. And with that, we shall end our scene. Thank you, player, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. This has been another scene in Darkness in Dublin. Have a pleasant evening.